Wisconsin Eye is proud to present Campaign 2020, featuring live and on-demand video updates on election issues like voter ID, polling, and absentee ballots. Coverage also includes campaign events, forums, debates, and interviews with candidates from around the state. Wisconsin Eye's Campaign 2020 coverage offers you an unfiltered, informative, and pandemic-proof way to inform your choice on November 3rd. Visit Campaign 2020 at wiseye.org. Campaign 2020 is sponsored by Wisconsin Hospital Association, Quick Trip, Wisconsin Counties Association, Wisconsin Realtors Association, and Wisconsin Operating Engineers Local 139.
Anthony, Bob Heiss from the Tribune has not checked in. I'm going to leave. I'm just not going to let him in once we get started because we've got a pretty crowded.
Right. We'll strike him.
And it is 3:30. Are you feeling ready?
Mr. Pfaff, is your audio working still?
It is. Can you hear me?
Okay, gotcha. Sorry. I just wasn't sure.
Yep.
All right, Anthony, I'm going to give you a 3 count and then we'll be ready to go.
Yep.
My clock here.
Oh, sorry, I started already. I already messed this up. Okay.
Well, now I've messed you up, so I have to get this phone that I don't.
That's a great start.
Syncing watches.
It's all fine, people. Dang it.
Well, I won't do that again.
Isabella. All right, Anthony, we're back. All right, I'm going to give you a 3, 2, 1, and then we will go.
Okay.
3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome to this debate for the 32nd District in the Wisconsin State Senate. My name is Anthony Chergosky, and I'm an assistant professor of political science in the Department of Political Science and Public Administration at the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse. Thank you for joining us today. The candidates for the 32nd Senate District are Dan Kapanke and Brad Pfaff. Mr. Kapanke is the candidate of the Republican Party, while Mr. Pfaff is the candidate of the Democratic Party. The format for this debate is as follows. Each candidate will receive 1 minute for an opening statement. Then the members of our media panel will take turns asking questions of the candidates. When asked a question, a candidate will have 1 minute and 15 seconds to respond. After that, the other candidate will have 45 seconds for rebuttal and follow-up. We will conclude the debate with closing statements by each candidate. Our media panel today features Dustin Lukey of WXOW News 19, Martha Koloski of WKBT News 8 Now, Ezra Wall of Wisconsin Public Radio, and Rick Solem of WIZM Radio. The League of Women Voters of the La Crosse area is generously providing assistance with keeping track of speaking time. Thank you, Maureen Kinney, for providing this assistance. The 2 most important rules of this debate are that the candidates should not interrupt one another, and the candidates should respect the time limits for their responses. I will enforce these rules as needed during the debate, and I appreciate the candidates' cooperation with these rules. Through a random draw, we have determined that Brad Pfaff will go first and Dan Kapanke will go second. Mr. Pfaff, you have 1 minute for your opening statement.
Well, thank you, Anthony. And hello, everyone. My name is Brad Pfaff, and I'm running for the state Senate. I'm running because I believe we can do better. My campaign is about bringing people together and moving past the polarized partisan politics that's currently taking place in our state capital. I was raised on a dairy farm, not too far from here where I sit right now. And on the farm, we learn the importance of hard work, dedication, and coming together when times are tough. We need more of that right now in our state capital. I've had the opportunity in my career to work on behalf of the people of Western Wisconsin. I've held senior level positions at the U.S. Department of Agriculture Farm Service Agency, as well as I served as a cabinet secretary at the Wisconsin Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection. As a leader, I listened to the people. I brought people together, and I worked hard to solve the problems that are taking place. That's the kind of person I am. That's the kind of state senator I will be. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pfaff. Mr. Kapanke.
Thank you. I'm Dan Kapanke. I'm running for the state Senate as a Republican. I'm honored to do that. I look forward to serving the people in the Senate again here from La Crosse area. I've lived in this district my entire life, except for time out for military. I've been in the National Guard and the United States Marine Corps Reserve. I helped my brother on his farm in South Dakota for a few months. But other than that, I've spent my entire life here in the 32nd, raising a family, working in agribusiness, in seed sales to farmers and sales and service. I started 2 businesses here with my family. We brought the La Crosse Loggers here, organized baseball, improved Copeland Park. And every summer we employ over 100 people at Copeland Park with the baseball operation. I'm honored again to represent these people. I'm passionate about the 32nd and look forward to working for them in Washington, in Madison, not Washington, Madison.
Thank you, Mr. Kapanke. We now turn to our media panel. We have a question for Mr. Pfaff from Dustin Lukey of WXOW News 19. Dustin, over to you.
Thank you, Anthony. 2021 will see the Wisconsin legislative maps redrawn once again. Now, the 2011 maps faced numerous court challenges, with the Supreme Court ultimately leaving it up to the states. The subsequent maps also, speculation says, will likely end up in courts. What would you propose to fix this process, if any changes?
Mr. Pfaff.
Get the legislature out of it. We do not need to have legislators drawing the boundaries of this district that they will serve. We need to make sure that the people of this state, the people of this district, their voices are heard. They should be able to select their legislators. We should not have shadowy law firms drawing maps that the legislators then take back to the people. Instead, we should have the people of this state play an important role in helping draw those maps. I think we can look at the model that we have just across the river in Iowa as an example of how we can make sure that we can keep representative democracy strong in this state. It is so important. We cannot have legislators selecting their constituents. We need to have constituents selecting their legislators. I will listen to the people of this district. I will respect their wishes, and I will make sure that we have legislative districts that are fair and balanced and competitive and represent all of the interests of the people of this state and this region.
Thank you, Mr. Pfaff. Mr. Kapanke.
Well, we have a process here whereby the legislature draws up the maps. The governor has to sign off on them. And as you know, we have a Democratic governor and a Republican legislature right now. And if that's the case, it'll probably end up in the courts. Now, it seems to be that the Democrats are the ones that are complaining about the maps as they stand, the districts. So I would just challenge them to bring forth your proposal on what the map should look like. I want to know how you're going to get a Democrat elected, a majority elected above Highway 8 in Wisconsin, or how you're going to get a Republican elected in inner city Milwaukee, Madison, or La Crosse. I don't know. I challenge them. Bring forth the maps, and I'll take a look at them. I'll have an open mind as to how they look like, and hopefully they're fair. And if the Democrats do that, I'll sign off on it. I'll be the first one in line to say this is good. But I challenge them. Bring forward their maps and what they should look like.
Thank you, Mr. Kapanke. Next, we have a question for Mr. Kapanke from Martha Koloski of WKBT News 8 Now. Martha, take it away.
Mr. Kapanke, today is the first day, the beginning of in-person absentee voting. So first, do you plan to vote early yourself with an absentee ballot? And if Wisconsin has a historically high number of absentee mail-in votes, do you think that makes our process less legitimate?
I'm planning on voting November 3rd because historically that's what I've done. And starting today, as you suggest, people can go to their city clerk's office or town clerk or village clerk's office and vote in person if that's what they choose to do. We have had absentee ballots sent out. I've got some concerns on absentee ballots because we've seen around the country that there have been people that have received several absentee ballots, and we've seen absentee ballots that have been in a garbage can. So there are concerns about that. But in Wisconsin, we can vote on election day. We can vote 14 days prior to the election, and we can vote absentee. And we have a history here in Wisconsin of doing things right, and hopefully that continues in 2020.
Thank you, Mr. Kapanke. Mr. Pfaff.
I plan to vote tomorrow. I'm going to go to Onalaska City Hall and vote tomorrow. I would have voted today, but I've been preparing for this debate. But I plan to vote tomorrow, early voting. And I believe in the integrity of the election process. We hear an awful lot of fear factors about ballots ending up in dumpsters or in ditches. I trust our county clerks. I trust our city clerks. I think that they're doing a very good job. And I believe that the people of this district and of this state can have confidence that their vote will be counted and it will be respected and it will count. So I'm going to vote early. And I want to thank our city clerks for doing the outstanding job that they do.
Thank you, Mr. Pfaff. Next, we have a question for Mr. Pfaff from Ezra Wall of Wisconsin Public Radio. Ezra, over to you.
Thanks. At the peak of the shutdown, unemployment in Wisconsin was about 14%. It's still double what it was in January. In January, it was about 3%, and now it's just over 6%. So keeping in mind that people need to be mindful of the public health crisis, how long can we expect the economy to exist like it does, and what needs to happen in order to get people back to work and back at their jobs?
Well, the first thing that needs to happen, Ezra, is that we need to make sure that we provide greater certainty for our small businesses, our medium-sized, large businesses, and our workers. And unfortunately, the legislature is doing anything but that. They're playing politics when they should be doing the work to make sure that we can get our economy back and going forward. If we really are serious about getting this economy back and going at full speed, we need to take this virus seriously. That means we can do three simple things: wash our hands, socially distance, and wear a mask. But rather than trying to bring people together to do that, they're playing politics. And as a result of that, too many small businesses have closed. Too many people have seen their jobs reduced and their hours cut. And too many people are left saying, what is going on? But rather than leading, they play games. So what would I do? Number one, we need to get more Federal CARES Act back. Number two, we need to make sure that we've got some economic development grants and low interest loans that are available. Number three, we all can pitch in and continue to help our small businesses by ordering carry out and continuing to shop local. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kapanke.
Well, we have picked winners and losers in this COVID-19 battle. We have targeted some businesses to be open, targeted some to be closed. We haven't put a 25% factor on all businesses, only some. The restaurants and bars have been hit harder than other businesses, and that's just not right. Early on, we labeled some people as essential that should and can go to work, and others that are non-essential. Who does this? Who has that power to say you can go to work, but you can't? And so what we've done here from the federal level is give it to the states. And the states have really, in many cases, given it to the local units of government to control how they want to operate throughout this COVID-19. And that's really what's happened here in La Crosse. So I would suggest that businesses be allowed to be open. 25% capacity is not acceptable. We're going to lose a lot of businesses at 25%. I know businesses. I've been into many of them. I run a business myself. And what I say is we should bring a plan. They should have a plan, safe plan that allows people to be open. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Mr. Kapanke. Next, we have a question for Mr. Kapanke from Rick Solom of WIZM Radio. Rick, over to you.
All right, thanks, Chergosky. We're 3 years into Foxconn. The Taiwanese-based company promised 13,000 jobs, $10 billion in investments for what's ballooned into about a $4.8 billion in tax subsidies, the biggest tax giveaway in U.S. history. If it meets its goals, Foxconn hasn't come close to that yet. The president even threatened this week that governments need to come through with their promises instead of the other way around, Foxconn doing that. Is there a better way to attract investment in the state besides taxpayer subsidies like the ones offered to Foxconn, Kimberly-Clark, Quick Trip even? And would you like to see the state get out of the Foxconn deals somehow? And if so, how would you do that?
Well, that's a great question. And I think Foxconn is going to end up being good for Wisconsin and the Wisconsin employment people. And I would just say that I think that contract was written in that they have to have so many employees before they get money. I don't think they've gotten a lot of money yet, if any, based on the formula that they had to reach, the standards that they had to reach as far as employment is concerned. So I think in that regard, it was a good contract. And I think that eventually, again, it'll be good for the state of Wisconsin, but we certainly need to be prudent about how we're going to spend taxpayers' dollars. And I think we were to a many extent here with Foxconn because they haven't gotten money yet, as far as I know, because they haven't reached the employment levels that were needed.
Thank you. Mr. Pfaff.
I think Foxconn was a really, really wrong move for the state of Wisconsin. Can you imagine what that $3 billion that the state of Wisconsin promised Foxconn, what that could do right now for small town main streets and businesses in this state? But instead, our legislature isn't meeting to help us now, but they couldn't wait to help out a foreign corporation. No, we need to do better than that. Misplaced priority by the previous governor and the current legislative leadership that's currently in place right now have led this state wrong on the economy. I will do better. We will invest in our local businesses and our workers rather than trying to entice out of nation companies to come in here. It was a wrong move.
Thank you, Mr. Pfaff. Next, I'm going to go back to WKBT News 8 Now, Martha Koloski. A question for Mr. Pfaff. Martha, take it away.
Mr. Pfaff, can you tell me what advice would you give, let's say, a UW system college student who just graduated, is facing $28,000 worth of college debt, and still is yet to be able to land their first job because of this economy?
I would look them in the eye and I would say that all of us need to and should have done better. We need to, first of all, lower the cost of higher education. In order to do that, we need to prioritize how important education is to our state as an economic development tool. There's no better investment for the state of Wisconsin than investing, quite frankly, in our education system. And so that's number one. Number two, to go back to what I just discussed, think about what we could do if we had that $3 billion that would be available, that we could invest in our small towns and in our communities, in our businesses in order to grow our economy. I believe in the people and the communities of this state. I do not believe that we need to take our precious tax dollars and invest them in an out-of-nation company to come in here, and we don't have anything to show for it yet. That is so wrong. We can do better. I hope the people of this district hold me accountable, because I want to make sure that we have money that's coming back to this district, investing in our people and in our communities.
Thank you. Mr. Kapanke.
My opponent refers to the $3 billion. I don't think the $3 billion has been sent yet for Foxconn. And as far as that graduate is concerned, $28,000 is a lot of money. I'm glad it's not more. But as I go around the district and I hear from around the state, there are so many companies looking for people, and the wages have been going up because there is a shortage, and there was a shortage pre-COVID, and there's still a shortage today. I mean, you can go into, I don't know how many businesses, and they'll say help wanted. So I would suggest to that college graduate, take the job, the best job he can get at this point, or she can get at this point, and grow from there. And other jobs are going to open up soon as this economy gets going after post-COVID.
Thank you. Let's go to WXOW News 19, Dustin Lukey. A question for Mr. Kapanke. Dustin?
Thanks, Anthony. What letter grade would you give the state in terms of preparing schools, both K-12 and universities, for dealing with the challenges of this year? And what's one proposal you would make to improve that grade?
Are you talking COVID here?
Yes.
Yeah. The COVID issue, nobody had advance warning of what it was going to be like and how long it was going to last. And so I really want to commend the school districts in our area. I think they were flexible. They made decisions based on the information they had at that time, and then they changed if the stats show that they should. We have some schools in the district that are in class and they're doing well. We have some areas here where they're doing a virtual and a combination of in class. And so I really want to commend the school districts, all of them in the 32nd. I've talked to administrators and I've talked to students and I've talked to parents in all the school districts, and they're doing the best they can. And I really want to commend them for that. I think that there's no template here that says this is the course we should take. Again, the flexibility has been tremendous by our school districts, and I think they're doing absolutely the best they can. The sooner we can get the students in class, however, the better off we'll all be.
Thank you. Mr. Pfaff.
I will answer that in the following ways. I will give the Wisconsin State Legislature an F. They didn't do their job. I will give the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction a C. They're providing guidance out to the school districts because the legislature will not come together, will not meet. They have not met since April. They have put these school administrators and these students out on an island all by themselves trying to figure this out. That's not leadership. That's not bringing people together. That's not doing what's in all our best interest. They failed. I encourage the DPI to continue to step forward and provide leadership because we're not getting it right now from the legislature.
Thank you, Mr. Pfaff. Want to go to WIZM Radio right now. Rick Solom, a question for Mr. Pfaff. Rick?
All right. What have you guys learned? Brad, your time as the state ag secretary only to be not confirmed by the Senate. And Dan, you both have unique situations in our state government. Dan, you were recalled in 2011 after support of Act 10. You probably both can look at each other's situations too as well. But what have you learned from those unique bouts in the government in your past?
Well, I would thank you, Rick, for that question. I've learned the following things, and that is that you can't take any of this personal. And the second thing is you need to recognize the fact you were sent to do a job. I traveled this state. I listened and I learned. I heard from farmers and small business people, Republican farmers and small business, Democrat and independent. They were hurting. They wanted the assistance from the state on a program that the state offered. Rather than stepping up and helping our family farmers and small business people, our partisan legislature decided to play partisan politics. Who lost? Our family farmers and small businesses lost. I can move on, but these people lost, and that's wrong. I did not just meet with Democrats or Republicans or independents. I met with tax-paying farmers. I heard firsthand what's happening out there. I saw in their eyes and heard their voice what they were looking for. And I took that back to the governor and the legislature. And rather than moving forward and appropriating money that was already authorized, the legislature played politics. That's what I learned.
Thank you, Mr. Pfaff. Mr. Kapanke.
Well, relative to Mr. Pfaff's position at DADCAP, what I hear is that actually he was pushing rules and regulations that were detrimental to farmers, and all the farm groups were opposed to it. At least the majority of them were, and that's why he was not confirmed. And as far as my recall, I have great respect for the political process that we have here in the United States and in Wisconsin. And I respect the will of the voters. And in that 2011 election, they voted me out, and I have great respect for that.
Thank you, Mr. Kapanke. Next, I want to go to Wisconsin Public Radio. Ezra Wall with a question for Mr. Kapanke. Ezra?
Thank you. Mr. Kapanke, in a conversation that we had last week, you indicated that because of what has been revealed about our healthcare system in light of COVID-19, you would be willing to consider accepting federal Medicaid expansion dollars here in Wisconsin, which has not been done in the past. Is that something you would actively push for if elected and sent to Madison?
I would be cautious about that, but I would certainly consider it. In Wisconsin, again, we have great insurance coverage for a majority of our people, and we've been that way for many, many years. We've been in the top 10 as far as having people insured here in Wisconsin. We've got Medicare, Medicaid, Badger Care, which is a great program that was started here in Wisconsin, serves so many people. We've got private insurance, we've got group insurance, and now we have the exchange with the HCA. So we've got great coverage for our people. I know that a lot of the states that, many of them that took the extra Medicaid money, now their budgets have grown. And so now maybe at the expense of maybe school aids or transportation aids or whatever the social services, whatever the case may be. So I would cautiously take a look at that and see if we can be better because of it. But in the long run, again, Wisconsin has been very good at making sure that people are covered. Back before ACA, I was proposing that we look at the 6 or 7% of us that were not insured rather than throwing everything else out and bringing in Obamacare.
Thank you. Mr. Pfaff.
Well, I agree with the vast majority of the people of this district in the state of Wisconsin that we should accept the federal Medicaid dollars. These are our money that we've already paid in. Republican states like Indiana, Oklahoma, Missouri have accepted this money, but for whatever reason, the partisan legislature, which is listening to the special interest groups, have said they don't want to take this. I don't understand it. I want to make sure that we have affordable and accessible health care for the residents of this state. And I want to make sure that people that have pre-existing conditions can have insurance going forward. Let's stop playing politics with insurance, and let's not have the lobbyists and the insurance companies dictating our health policy.
Thank you. Going to go to Dustin Lukey of WXOW News 19. A question for Mr. Pfaff. Dustin?
If you're elected as the state senator representing the 32nd district, you would be representing everybody in the district. Being that you're both white men, how would you work to represent the underrepresented voices in this district?
A seat at the table. We need to respect everybody. And I want everybody who's listening and everybody that cares and is voting for this to know the fact that they will always have a seat at the table with me. My mom taught me an awful lot. She still does. But she said, Brad, you were given 2 of these and 1 of these for a reason. Listen twice as much as you speak. And I guarantee everyone, I will listen. I will reach out and people will have a seat at the table. I will make sure that the people of this district, that their thoughts are heard and considered. I strongly believe in finding consensus and bringing people together. And I want to let everyone here know that I will not be led by special interest. I will be led by you, the people of this district. It's who I am. Believe me, I've stood up to special interest. My opponent brought up the fact that I stood up to special interest. He knows, looked him in the eye, and I said, I will not let special interest run over the interest of the people of this district and this state. And if that's farmer mental health, if that's health for the well-being of the people of this district, I will stand for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pfaff. Mr. Kapanke.
Well, I have a history of working with everybody, whether it be in my agribusiness as a seed salesman, whether it be a chairman in the town of Campbell or in the state senate, or with my businesses here in town. I'm incensed at just the notion that because I'm a certain race that I might not work with somebody that is of a different color. That just incenses me. I'm no better than anybody else because of my color. And we have to work with everybody. And when I was in Madison, is exactly what I did. I was a lone sponsor of some bills that was supported by all the Democrats and no Republicans on 2 major bills that affected Wisconsin. So I do work with everybody. And my opponent talks about special interests. but he's taken $800,000 from the Democratic Party of Wisconsin, and much of this money has come from out of state, from California, from Illinois, the governor of Illinois.
Thank you, Mr. Kapanke. Thank you, Mr. Kapanke. Next, we have a question for Mr. Kapanke from Martha Koloski of WKBT News 8 Now. Martha?
Yes, Wisconsin is undeniably a hotspot for COVID-19 right now. Governor Evers put a mask mandate in place and wears a mask routinely. But President Trump and his staff did not wear masks and frequently even criticized or made fun of those who chose to wear one. The president even became sick himself. So, Mr. Kapanke and Mr. Pfaff, which mask philosophy do you follow? And what do you recommend to voters in the 32nd district?
It's a great question. I recommend a mask whenever it's appropriate. And I've been wearing one for some time. I've been doing doors since June 1st. I've been following the outside. I'm outside. I follow the 6 foot. And then I wear a mask when it's appropriate. And I think everybody should. And wearing a mask and doing those three things certainly hasn't stopped the spread of COVID. So it's going to be there. I mean, if our health director, who has been certainly, I think, using all the safety measures if she can come down with COVID, then I think anybody can. But I think we need to, again, put in place all of the measures. That's what we did in our business. We put a 5 or 6 place safety page together of safety rules and regs at our ballpark, and we had no COVID traced back to us. So it can be done in a safe manner if we use the procedures that are out there for us to use.
Thank you. Mr. Pfaff.
Well, I really am disappointed in the fact that the Wisconsin state legislature isn't stepping forward and recognizing the fact that this is important. 3 simple things: wash our hands, socially distance, and wear a mask. But instead they play politics. They play politics with a mask. They could have come forward. They could have brought the legislature together and developed policies and procedures that would assist our education system, our small businesses, but instead they're playing politics with this. So the thing is, I strongly support wearing a mask. I want to make sure that we come together to stop the spread of this virus. It's the best thing that we can do. And you know what? Leaders need to lead, and they need to lead by demonstrating that they take this serious.
Thank you, Mr. Pfaff. Next, we have a question for Mr. Pfaff from Ezra Wall of Wisconsin Public Radio. Ezra?
Question goes back to the issue of public schools. According to Wisconsin Public Radio story in 2019, Wisconsin has the widest achievement gap between black and white students of any other state. What needs to happen to close that gap?
Well, that's a great question. And I'll tell you, I've been hearing that as I travel this district, and I listen and I learn from community members, from parents, and from educators. A couple things need to happen. Number one, we need to acknowledge the fact that how important education is to our district and to our community and to our state. So we need to make sure that we have the resources that are there. Number two, we need to make sure that we recognize the fact that we have to be able to have the tools for our educators to provide a high quality education to our students. Number three is we need to include members of the community in this process. Make sure that we reach out to different community members so their thoughts and their ideas are heard in order to close this achievement gap. The other thing we need to do is we need to continue to work with our private sector in order to have internships and mentorships and other type of opportunities for students to learn and continue to grow. But we have to stop playing politics with education. Unfortunately, too much money has been pulled away from our public education system and gone to private charter schools and vouchers that our students locally here are not having the dollars so our school district can close this achievement gap.
Thank you, Mr. Pfaff. Mr. Kapanke.
Thank you. Since fiscal year 2012, we spent more every year on K-12 education. Up until the last budget. And it's always been a number one priority, scheduling priority for a long, long time here in Wisconsin. In the 17-19 budget, we added $630 million additional to K-12. In the 19-21, we've added $655 million to K-12. And average per student is about 13,500 now. That ranks near the top of all Midwestern states. We've had it as a priority. And as far as the achievement gap, I've said many times that to give parents more options as to where they send their kids is an answer, and that is school choice.
Thank you, Mr. Kapanke. Next, we have a question for Mr. Kapanke from Rick Solom of WIZM Radio. Rick, over to you.
All right. The 32nd Senate District, the most watched contest in the state, I think. Probably the most watched thing in the internet right now, right? And as candidates, each of you is, attracting a record number of political donations. In 2015, Republicans under Scott Walker changed campaign finance laws to allow a lot more money to flow to candidates in one way or another. Since then, Democrats have proposed bills to rein that back in many different ways. Do you support campaign finance reform in Wisconsin? And if so, what specific reforms are needed?
Well, the Supreme Court has ruled recently, as far as federally is concerned, about campaign finance, and it's a Second Amendment. And so I just think that we need transparency more than finance reform. We need transparency in where this money is coming from and who's receiving it. And as I mentioned early on this program, my opponent has over $800,000 that he's received from the Democratic Party, which has in turn received it from the governor of Illinois and a doctor from California. So in his last reporting period, only 6% of his money has come from within the 32nd district. 94% have come from outside the district, and much of that outside the state. On the other hand, 65% of mine has come within the district. And I think that's more important. I'm beholden to the people of the district. People outside this district are paying for Brad Pfaff's campaign. So I think transparency, the people should know who's getting the money and where it's coming from.
Thank you. Mr. Pfaff.
Well, I think that's really rich coming from my opponent who we all know that the Koch brothers and American for Prosperity have worked very closely throughout his political career. So I do appreciate you following my campaign, but I think let's level set here and talk about the fact that who's reaching out and working with the people of this district. My campaign continues to communicate and speak with the people of this district tirelessly every single day. I will continue to do that. I strongly support transparency in the political process. I believe Citizens United, that the Republican Party nationally in the state of Wisconsin strongly supported before the U.S. Supreme Court, should be overturned. But I find it very rich to start hearing from my opponent about money in politics. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pfaff. Let's have a question for Mr. Pfaff now from Dustin Lukey of WXOW News 19. Dustin, over to you.
Thanks, Anthony. Law enforcement continues to be a significant issue in national and local races. What changes would you propose, if any, to how officers are funded or trained in the district?
Well, thank you, Dustin. That's a very good question. And I think the most important thing that we need to do is we need to make sure that we do have dollars available for our officers to have the kind of training that is required for them to make sure that they treat everyone equally under the law. Everyone, regardless of their skin color, your ethnicity, your gender, you're treated equally under the law. And that we make sure that we keep our communities safe, but we keep them welcoming. That's very important. I want to make sure that people have an opportunity for due process, which is guaranteed in in our Constitution and our Bill of Rights. We have due process underneath the law. So those are all very important to me. And I also want to say this. I've been working with and speaking with our police chiefs and with law enforcement, and this should not be a political issue. I am disappointed that there's some in politics that are trying to play politics with law enforcement. All of us want to keep our communities safe. All of us want to keep our communities strong. And all of us want to keep our communities welcoming. So let's move away from playing the partisan politics that some are doing, and let's come together to help our law enforcement and keep our communities welcoming and safe.
Thank you. Mr. Kapanke.
We're very fortunate in this part of the state, in this part of the country, that we have great law enforcement officers in departments here in Western Wisconsin. I haven't been endorsed by all the sheriffs in our district. I know that angers my opponent, but they know that I back them Our party backs them. His party's been very slow to this party. It took Mr. Biden 3 months or more before he came out and supported law enforcement and was against the riots and the chaos. We were there right away, and law enforcement knows this. The governor came out with a plan recently. I think it was an 8-point plan. And in talking to our law enforcement officers here, all of them have every one of those points. They've already implemented them. They're in training with them. The only thing I would add to this is that if they need more money for equipment, that should be an issue that we should address.
Thank you, Mr. Kapanke. Let's go to Martha Koloski from WKBT News 8 Now. A question for Mr. Kapanke. Martha?
Yes, the second round of the We're All In grants in Wisconsin were just announced. So as many as 10,000 businesses will each receive about $5,000 to help them get through the pandemic. But for many of these businesses, that kind of financial help won't be enough to save them. So do you think it's better to allow businesses to get back to operating more normally to increase their income? Or is it better to stay at 25% capacity and plan for more government funding to help them survive?
That's great. Great question. We've done some stimulus already. This country's like 27 trillion in debt or 26 trillion in debt right now. The easiest way for businesses to be profitable is to open up the country, and we have to do it safely. And we have to do it with those procedures of distance and masks. And believe me, there's no business that I know that I've walked into that says, well, we don't care if people get COVID. They do care. They care about their business. Their livelihood depends on it. So let's trust these business owners to implement a safety plan whereby people can come in and feel safe and secure. And by the way, nobody is making anybody come to Copeland Park and watch a ball game or go into the local restaurant or tavern in town. You do that because you feel comfortable. If you don't feel comfortable, then don't go. Stay home. If you feel sick, of course, you should stay home. And we have to trust the common sense of our people here in this district to do the right thing.
Thank you. Mr. Pfaff.
I will say this, the lack of leadership from Washington, D.C., and the lack of leadership from our Wisconsin state legislature has made our customers and our businesses, they put them in very difficult situations. Neither our small businesses nor our customers want to be in this situation, but due to the lack of leadership, the fact that we haven't come together to stop the spread of this virus, we now have a situation in which businesses need extra stimulus. I will push hard to make sure Washington, D.C. gives us the second round of this CARES Act. We need that. We need to make sure that we have dollars available for our small businesses to keep going. But they are not going to continue to keep going if our customers don't feel safe. And in order to do that, we need to come together and stop the spread of this virus.
Thank you, Mr. Pfaff. Next, we go over to Ezra Wall from Wisconsin Public Radio. A question for Mr. Pfaff. Ezra, take it away.
Thank you. Gentlemen, both of you have deep roots in agriculture, both professionally and in your upbringing. It's about $105 billion industry in our state annually, as you know. What's the biggest challenge facing the farmers of the 32nd District, and how do we help them overcome it?
Well, that's a great question, and I will say this. The number one challenge that we face in order to, our family farmers face is the fact that they want to be heard and they want to be respected. They can produce the highest quality crop and the best dairy products. We need to continue to work in order to develop new markets for these products, because consumers around the world, when I was agriculture secretary, I met with buyers and representatives from different governments around the country and in different places in the world that wanted our agriculture products. They want that. But we need to make sure that we help these farmers stay on the land. Health care, high quality education, a good transportation system, broadband. We need to make sure that we have the quality of life issues that help these family farmers so they can continue to grow and to prosper. I have total confidence in our farmers. They are going to produce high quality food, high quality dairy products. I have tremendous confidence in our food processing sector. But the thing is this, we need to do more as far as making sure that we keep our infrastructure in place so our family farmers continue to grow and to prosper. I will be a champion. I will continue to work on their behalf.
Thank you. Mr. Kapanke.
Well, if you know anything about farmers, you know they don't look for a handout. They just want a level playing field. And we can do that with in Wisconsin with our markets, opening up new markets, promoting their products. We have some of the best products, diversified products in all of the world here, raised right here and growing in Wisconsin. Talk about cranberries, potatoes, and dairy products, cheese, of course, meat products, and all the other ones that are raised and growing here in Wisconsin. The Canadian and Mexican deal is very helpful. That was pulled off by our president and it's Congress, and it's been very helpful. Milk products have gone to Mexico. China has purchased recently over 700 million tons of soybeans. That's been helpful. So those are the things we can do for our dairy farmers here and our agriculture in Wisconsin.
Thank you. Next up, a question for Mr. Kapanke from Rick Solom of WIZM Radio. Rick, over to you.
All right, I'll try this again. A lot of money is flowing into your campaigns. You both just argued how much outside money each other is getting, and you both just talked about transparency. But do you support campaign finance reform in Wisconsin? The state can do this. And if you do support that, what specific reforms are needed? If you don't support campaign finance reform, then why not?
Mr. Kapanke.
Yeah, thank you very much. Again, I said we need transparency and where this money's coming from and who's it going to. And I think the people need to know that. On the other hand, if there's some finance reform that is proposed that makes sense, I would certainly be open to taking a look at it. But again, I think transparency is the biggest thing in financing in government and in candidates. And it's interesting to me, again, that and so many of the answers that my opponent has given, he's looking to Washington and Madison for answers. And no matter what the topic may be, it seemed like. And I have a lot of faith in the people here right in Western Wisconsin. We can make decisions that are best for our candidates, best for our government right here in Western Wisconsin.
Thank you. Mr. Pfaff.
Rick, I think it's a great question. And I will say this, I want to work in a bipartisan manner on campaign finance reform. I think that we need to look at what we can do together as both political parties coming together, recognizing the fact that elections cost too much money. There's too much money spent right now in politics. I think I can admit that. I think a lot of people can admit that. But we need to work together on this. We have to be able to have a bipartisan solution when it comes to campaign finance reform. But as we discussed earlier, the U.S. Supreme Court has put Citizens United, it's out there. And this is what we've got. But I am willing to work in a bipartisan manner on campaign finance reform.
Thank you, Mr. Pfaff. Next, let's head over to Martha Kolaski of WKBT News 8 Now. A question for Mr. Pfaff. Martha?
Mr. Pfaff, many local businesses and schools are really trying to do their part to be more environmentally friendly. Do you believe the science about climate change, and would you support green programs if you're elected?
That's a very good question, and I do believe science, and I will work with science. And I think that it's best for all of us if we continue to listen to science. And I do believe that we have real opportunities to grow our economy by recognizing the fact that our family farmers can produce an awful lot of high quality products that can help our environment. I think that our family farmers can sequester, our soils can sequester carbon. I think that there's tremendous opportunities for solar and there's for wind. I think we could put solar panels on dairy barns. We could put wind turbines on silos. I think that there's opportunities that we could work with the food processing sector in order to be even more energy efficient. I toured a number of cheese plants and vegetable processing plants in which they are capturing the steam that there's coming off of the food processing, and it's using to create electricity and energy. I think there's opportunities when it comes to agriculture equipment manufacturing to make even more fuel efficient, diesel efficient tractors and equipment. There's real opportunities in Wisconsin's economy here, but unfortunately, people are playing politics with this issue.
Thank you. Mr. Kapanke.
The climate has been evolving for years and years and years, and we're only here for a small period of time. And we need to be good caretakers of our environment, clean air, clean water. There isn't anybody that does not want that. We all want that. And so as far as the green energy is concerned, we've got solar, we have wind. If there are other sources that make sense, again, I'd be open to looking at it. But we need a steady supply of energy to run our economy. And that depends on, whether that's water, oil, turbines, coal. We need to do it in a clean, efficient manner, but we have to have a steady, regular source for our economy to move forward.
Thank you. Next up, a question for Mr. Kapanke from Dustin Lukey of WXOW News 19. Dustin, over to you.
Thanks, Anthony. We'll stick with infrastructure for a moment, Mr. Kapanke. You said specifically that you should leave a lot of the decisions up to the district as far as fixing things. But when it comes to roads, there's a lot of work that the state has to do on certain roads, La Crosse Street being a notable example of this. How would you propose the state work with local areas like the 32nd District to give them the resources to fix roads?
Yeah, it's a great question. By the way, congrats on the new gig there, Dustin.
Thanks, Dan.
We have had big projects in Southeast Wisconsin for the last, number of years, and a lot of the transportation funding has gone that way. And those projects are getting completed now. So it's time to look at Western Wisconsin and rural areas and how we might funnel more money into badly needed repairs of roads and new roads here in this part of the state. I know that in the last budget, the legislature put in $90 million for the local road improvement fund, and the governor vetoed that, which was very unfortunate. That money was targeted for rural roads here again in rural Wisconsin. So I think that it's a matter of the legislators having a voice. For the last how many years we had a minority leader, and now we have a Democratic governor that we're representing this area with the Democratic governor. And so if I get in there, we'll be working together with the legislature to make sure that the western part of the state, the rural part of the state is addressed with the needed money they need for roads.
Thank you. Mr. Pfaff.
Well, I agree. We need to make sure that we have this part of the state that has the funding needed for our roads and our bridges. But let's not forget the previous governor of this state. And for 8 years, he did everything he could to make sure that we did not have funding for our roads. We are paying a big price for the mispriorities of the previous governor. And I will remind everyone that the Republican legislature, that the leadership that's still in place, supported what the former governor moved forward with in defunding our roads and our local bridges. And as a result of that, we do have potholes like in the city of La Crosse with La Crosse Street. We all want to do more. We need to help our local units of government to do that. I will be there and work with our local units of government to make sure that they have the resources that they need.
Thank you. We have time for one more question, and this time we'll have 1 minute responses from each candidate. We're going to go head over to WIZM and Rick Solom. A question for Mr. Pfaff. Rick, take it away.
All right. When it comes to recreational marijuana, it's legal in Illinois, Michigan, Canada. Medical marijuana is legal in Minnesota. Our state government's looking for funding. One way to do that, legalize marijuana and tax the bleep out of it. Where do you stand on legalizing marijuana?
Mr. Pfaff, you have 1 minute.
Well, I support medical marijuana. I think it's important that we continue to move forward with research and for advancements in our health when it comes to medical marijuana. When it comes to recreational marijuana, I'm still listening. I'm learning, but I'm not there yet. I want to work with our law enforcement. I want to work with our community groups. I want to work with our educators. I'm still listening and I'm learning. But I think that there's opportunities for us when it comes to medical marijuana, as far as working with the healthcare field to make sure that we provide our patients with top quality healthcare. But when it comes to recreational marijuana, I want to work with law enforcement, with education, with community groups to continue to learn and listen. And I want to listen and learn from the experience of these neighboring states. Thank you.
Mr. Kapanke, 1 minute for you.
Oh, thank you. Well, if the medical community came forward with a compelling, almost unanimous argument that we should have medical marijuana. I would take a look at it. I wouldn't say I'd vote for it, but I'd be open to it. As far as recreational, not a chance.
Thank you, Mr. Kapanke. Actually, I have time for closing statements. We're going to move on to closing statements. So thank you so much to the members of our terrific media panel for their questions. We have time for closing statements. I can give each candidate 90 seconds each, up to 90 seconds. We can start with Mr. Pfaff, then go to Mr. Kapanke. Mr. Pfaff, over to you for your closing statement.
Well, thank you, Anthony, and thank you, everyone from the Lacrosse media, for giving me and Mr. Kapanke the opportunity to meet with you. I want to say this. Our politics is broken right now in Madison. It doesn't need to be like that, but it is. Rather than coming together and working for the best interest of all of us, they've decided to play partisan politics. And as a result of the partisan politics that they're playing, too many people have lost their job. Our small businesses and medium-sized businesses are looking for greater certainty. Our roads aren't being funded. Broadband isn't being built. Healthcare is not being expanded. We can do better. All of us know we can do better. I'm running for the Wisconsin State Senate because I know if we come together, we can get things done. I was raised with the values of hard work, dedication, and understanding that there's more that unites us than divides us. Those are Western Wisconsin values. Those are our values. Let's take those values to Madison. I ask all of you, please, go vote on Tuesday, November 3rd. And I sure hope you'll consider voting for me, Brad Pfaff. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kapanke.
Well, thank you again. Thanks for this forum, this opportunity. I've lived in this district almost my entire life, as I mentioned earlier. I'm passionate about the people in this district. I know so many people throughout this entire district. I know their businesses. I know what their concerns are. I'm eager to go to Madison and represent them and work for them in Madison and out here. This has been a great campaign. A little different because of no church suppers and parades and festivals, which normally we partake in as a campaigner. But it's been great because I've exclusively almost allowed my time out here in the campaign trail to knock on doors and talk to people and listen to people more than anything else. And I've learned so much from that. And there's so many ads on TV now that are misleading. There's several against me that are so misleading and downright untrue. And there's so much money, as we talked earlier in these campaigns. Those are two things that people really get upset with when they, again, endure a campaign. They can't wait for it to be over. And it's too bad it is like that. But I pledge to the people of this district that I'll be the person I am. I work for them. I care for them. I'm passionate about this district, and I will work hard for them if they elect me on November 3rd.
Thank you, Mr. Kapanke. This concludes our debate for the 32nd District in the Wisconsin State Senate. A huge thanks to the members of our media panel, Martha Koloski of WKBT News 8 Now, Dustin Lukey of WXOW News 19, Rick Solom of WIZM Radio, and Ezra Wall of Wisconsin Public Radio. And of course, thank you to Maureen Kinney from the League of Women Voters of the La Crosse area for your help in keeping track of time. We really appreciate it. And thank you so much to the two candidates in this race, Brad Pfaff and Dan Kapanke, for your participation in this debate. For more information about voting in this election, please visit myvote.wi.gov. For now, I'm Anthony Chergosky from the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse. Thank you for joining us for this debate, and remember to cast your vote.
This program is a production of Wisconsin Eye, an independent, nonpartisan, nonprofit media network with a mission to inform, educate, and engage the citizens of Wisconsin. Wisconsin Eye is the nation's first and only independently funded state civics broadcast network, providing gavel-to-gavel access to government proceedings and events at the state capitol.
Wisconsin Eye is proud to present Campaign 2020, featuring live and on-demand video updates on election issues like voter ID, polling, and absentee ballots. Coverage also includes campaign events, forums, debates, and interviews with candidates from around the state. Wisconsin Eye's Campaign 2020 coverage offers you an unfiltered, informative, and pandemic-proof way to inform your choice on November 3rd. Visit Campaign 2020 at wiseye.org.